What is up, everybody? Joe here. In this video is actually a Q&A video. I'm going to try to jam as much value into this video as possible, 20 minutes, whatever it is, answer all of your questions that you've given me and fly through them. So the first one is how much outreach is required, or how many days of outreach for landing a good or first client? So honestly, this is such a niche dependent question because each niche is going to have a different ABR, different cold calling metrics, different cold email metrics, but literally you have to figure this out yourself. And that's a not sexy answer, I know, but you need to go, I did this many cold calls, I got this amount of booking rate, right? This month. Next month, what is it? Because again, the more of the thing you do, the better you're going to be getting at it, and the better metrics you're going to have. So for the first month, you might have to do 1,500 cold calls to land one client, right? Next month, you might be better at cold calls. ABR is up by 2%. You'll do 2,000, right? So literally, you have to work this out for your own agency, right? So how many cold calls are you doing a day? What's the pickup rate? What is the pitch rate? What is the ABR on that? The appointments booked per 100 cold calls, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%. Then out of those, how many people show? Then how many people close, right? And how many are qualified? This is all up to you. You have to rewire this. You have to work this out for yourself. For each agency, it's going to be very different. So best thing you can do, take out a spreadsheet, take out a notepad, whatever. Write down how many calls it's going to take you to acquire a client on average. This will not be exact, but at least it's a rough number that you need to figure out, right, in terms of getting your first client. Because then you go, it's going to take me this amount of calls to get my first client, right, or one client. Then you go, well, if I want 10 clients and hit 10K a month, you, again, reverse engineer that until you then have a number that's actually going to hit that goal. So we want to take the outcome, which is this big number, 20 grand a month, whatever it is, and wire it into daily actions, which is the cold calls, which is the cold email, which is the DMs, right? So I always talk about cold calls, but you can do this for any other system, but you have to do the exact same thing and reverse engineer the numbers all the way down into the daily actions. I sit on this table, I open up Go High Level, and I call X amount of people, right? Next day I have to call this amount of people and set up a landing page. Whatever. Daily actions is the best thing, but you have to, again, have the North Star goal in mind and then wire your daily actions off of that goal. Another question, what monthly recurring revenue did you start to hire closers? So, I mean, I wouldn't be asking what's the revenue, I would be asking how many sales calls, right? Because if you're doing 40K a month, but you only have your calendar booked out and you haven't booked another person out, you don't have enough volume to book another person out, that's useless. Like the closer's gonna have no calls, just useless. You have to make sure that, hey, look, if I put X amount into ads, I can then book a closer out. The closer, if he's closing what I'm closing, or even a bit less, always be conservative with these numbers, we will book him out again, right? So you need to know that this is scalable. You can also book the amount of appointments that that closer can handle as well. So for me, this exact question that you're asking is the monthly recurring revenue. Then I did around 30 grand a month, right? And that's what got me up to about 45. But it was more important that I was able to book those sales calls that the closer could take, because if he couldn't take them, then it'd be completely worthless. The whole thing would be just horrible, right? We want to make sure they're getting paid well. Again, 15% commission on a deal. That's what I like doing. 10 is usually what people do, but 15 is nice because they're even more incentivized to be a good salesman. So yeah, I mean, make sure you're booking yourself out first. You have the time yourself and you're like, hey, this is too many for me. I then have the systems to scale to another person. Then you want to get another closer on board and give him more sales calls and literally as much as he can, right? What I would do is I want to have the closer shadow me for the first 10 to 20 sales calls, right? So anything that he, let's say, didn't know, he would hear on that sales call. Now, what I would do is the next week I would hop on his sales calls. He would take control of the sales calls. He would do line of questioning, the pitching, all that stuff. But if the prospect had a very in-depth answer, needed a very in-depth answer from us, I would step in and answer that question. So that's what I would do. I like the shadowing and then transition to booking him out as well as yourself so you double the volume. That's how I love doing it. What's your B2B ad funnel process to only get on sales calls with people that have the money to spend? So I like the question, but it depends where you're at. Right, I always say people from 0 to 20K a month, you probably shouldn't even be qualifying, like if I'm going to be honest, because every single conversation you have with a prospect, you can deeply understand the niche better, is worth taking. So it's one of those things where if you're at 50 grand a month, you have your calendar booked out, you know how to book more appointments like with ads, you said, then you want to start qualifying a bit harder. And what I would do is either have those pre-qualification questions on the Facebook ad, like you mentioned when you're running ads, on the Facebook ads, right? So they click on the ad, they go into the questions that they're going to answer, and then you have the pre-qualifying questions there, right? So let's say for real estate, if they're not closing 2 deals a month, you then, are you closing 2 deals a month or more? Yes or no, right? And then if they click no, they take them back to Facebook and they get opted out. That would be a qualifying question. That's just an example, a random one I had on top of my head. But you want to start as you scale, really identifying what's your perfect avatar, what's your perfect prospects. Like, hey Joe, like this type of prospect who's closing more than 2 deals a month is always closing, but this one when they're like closing 0, I've never sold one of them. And you probably should go all in on that 2 deal a month prospect. You should probably narrow your avatar a bit harder and qualify because that's the best performing prospects. That's what we're doing the best at. But again, quick caveat, if you're a beginner, you need to be taking as much volume as you literally can, because you need to know as much about the niche as you can, right? Again, we should only be qualifying once we get higher and higher and higher in the business. At higher income level, you're able to qualify. But as a beginner, I think you should just be taking all the sales calls, just get the volume in. Again, we need to identify the bottleneck in the business. Is the bottleneck volume or the qualification, right? And then once you have that bottleneck identified, one of the two, you then hone in on one of those variables and then crush it, qualify more, or more volume, don't qualify as much, right? So when to start traveling with other entrepreneurs and where to travel to. I always ask myself in this case, what am I optimizing for? If I'm optimizing for networking, I need to learn. I have someone above me at 100K a month. Let's say I'm at 40, 50. I need to learn what is this guy doing differently. And he invites me into a thing to travel, or I'll ask him about it. Those are always worth it because you're always learning for someone above you, right? But I always kind of go into seasons, right? So seasons of entrepreneurship. There's one where I need to learn. I need to get to 500K a month instead of 50. And there's some where like I just need to execute, stick in this room for an extended period amount of time, build this product, build this thing. I know what it takes to get to the next position. Then I'll just literally stick in my house for 2 months and just sit on a computer and go to the gym. And that's my day. Like, done. But if you're in seasons where you really need to travel, you really need to learn, then I always recommend going to places that other entrepreneurs are staying at, right? So this is very helpful. If your goal is to network, to learn, to pay down your internet debt in form of building a network, you don't have a network, travel to Bali, travel to Dubai, travel to London, New York, these big places where all entrepreneurs are going. I always go, do we want to travel to a place in the middle of nowhere and just lock in and you don't care about networking, or you care about networking and you go to a place like Dubai or Bali and there's going to be entrepreneurs all over the place there, right? So ask yourself what you're optimizing for. Locking in, go somewhere, nowhere, just literally go on Airbnb with a bunch of guys. If you're looking to meet new people, that's your goal, that's what you're optimizing for. Go to those places. But depends what season, man. Like, if you know what to do, you know what to execute on, stick in your freaking house. Like, really, stay in your house, just execute. That's what I do. I just lock myself in a room and work, right? Other people disagree with me. That's completely fine. I like doing that. I don't mind that. I already right now have the network of people that are above me. I can ask them virtually. If you don't have that benefit, it might be worth traveling a little bit, get to know more people. Does a website or portfolio required for short form content video editing? I'm going to make this a bit more macro because short form is kind of, it's a niche that everybody might not apply to. But in terms of short form, have a portfolio. 100%. Like if someone's hitting me up in the DMs, it's short form content guy, I need to see a portfolio or I won't open my DM. I won't respond. If you're talking about general agency stuff, right? General agency stuff, a website's very nice just for the social proof, right? People for local businesses are always going to ask for a website. Just one of those things. A lot of them are going to ask for a website because they won't trust you if you don't. So it's just a trust thing, man. Like it's going to be trust that gets them over the edge on the sales process. If you have the trust layer filled where you build a pre-call video, you show the background of the company, you show you have a website, some case studies or testimonials on there that you can also show, that's very beneficial. But yeah, I do recommend a portfolio, case studies, website, always, really. But there's a quick caveat where I recommend getting it done like literally as soon as possible. You have 24 hours a day, like take 30 minutes to set up a website, use a template. As a beginner, just have something. Buy a $10 domain, put a template on it. Right? Just put your company logo on and explain what you do. That's all you need as a beginner. You just need something, right? Something. It is difficult not to have one. That's my personal experience. So some guys have gotten away for a few months cold calling and not having a website, taking sales calls, not having a website. I just found in my niche in real estate, it's extremely difficult. But yeah, I'd recommend building one ASAP. Do you do one or two call closes for packages above 3K? I've always done one call close no matter the price. And this is because, if I'm going to be honest, I think I'm very good at warming up leads and nurturing leads before they get into the call. So the only reason I'm able to do that is because I have a pre-call video. It's because the cold callers are good. It's because the ads are good. Because my follow-up messages are good. I know my avatar. I know what I'm targeting. I know how to warm up that lead to get them to build trust. So if you're a beginner and you're facing that all the time, you might want to start doing 15-minute discovery calls as the initial call, like 1 out of 2 calls. I know people in real estate who do that and they're crushing it, but also I just prefer doing 1 call closes. Very easy, 1 slot in the calendar. I have a pre-call video automated that's sent to everybody, builds a lot of trust, basically pre-sells them on the pre-call video, and then it's just super easy because I know they're closed or not. Follow-up call, if not, emergency situation, follow-up call. But we're going to go hard, 1 call close every single time. Every time that I can, that's going to be what it is. When getting leads for real estate, do you call the leads yourself or the agent? Yeah, so the agent's going to call all the leads for my personal agency. I know guys who do have a call center and make it work. But the reason for me making the agent's call is because there's a few factors here. One, if I get a very niched real estate question about the market or how it is in that area and I'm running ads all over the country, then I'm not going to know that specific answer, or I'm not going to be as good at answering as the specific real estate agent I'm working with. So I always love them answering that. Secondly, it also builds a lot of rapport before they go to the house to sell the house. So this is very important that we need to have a trust factor, again, with our sales process, but also with our client sales process, right? So I heard a saying I really like, it's that your client's problem is your problem. So your client is having trouble closing leads, you need to make sure they close leads, right? If they're having trouble from your agency, freaking fix that, right? So I want to minimize the problems. I want to get them the best results as possible. So I make sure that the realtors are calling the leads with a specific time period, a specific amount of times in the week. Because again, guys, the money is in follow-ups. Like call, 1 day, 24 hours, 1 day, just through the whole week. As many calls as you can to follow up with leads. Again, don't be excessive. After 7 calls in a week daily, then the lead is pretty much gone, right? And then you can put them on a reactivation list where you can get reactivated again month by month because they consented to giving their phone number. So yeah, that's why I like having my clients call the leads, because they're better at it than my team. If it was to build a team, it would be a lot more expense. And I believe my actual Go High Level automations do a great job in terms of nurturing, getting them to show up to appointments, in terms of notifying the realtor. I have all automations for that in Go High Level. That does a fantastic job that I actually don't need of the call team, right? Niche by niche, this is going to be different. For real estate itself, always the realtor calling the lead, always my software following up the lead. That's always done by the software. When did you start to run paid ads to get more customers after the first client? I didn't start paid ads until I was around 10 to 15K a month. And if you're going to be speedy with it, you don't mind spending some money, you have minimal expenses, and you have room on your calendar, I think you can start paid ads a bit earlier, right? So there's a few factors here, but I'll quickly tell a story. There's someone sitting at 2 to 3K a month. This is a rare exception. And he told me that he was booking everything to cold calling. Cold calling take 3-4 hours. He would close a lot, like a really good 33% close percentage, something like that, in the car detailing niche. And this guy heard advice all over the internet where it's like, don't start paid ads till you're 50K a month, everything outbound. Where I tend to disagree with that opinion. I think as soon as you have a proven sales process, you can handle clients as well on the back end with your service delivery. You could probably start ads, because as long as your niche is targetable on Facebook or whatever platform you use to run ads, you can always get sales calls from it. As little as $20 a day, right? I know someone's spending $15 and they're booking 5 to 6 appointments a day. It's almost too much for them, right? So these things are entirely possible. But the most important thing here is having that sales process in place that those leads can get closed by. Because if you're spending hundreds of dollars a week, hundreds and hundreds, on ads just to have the leads show up and really not sell them well, or they don't get warmed up, or they don't show, you don't have a proven show process that they actually show up to the call at a decent rate, then you're wasting the money. Make sure those factors are solved: show up rate, close rate, and as well you can take on clients in the back. Those are just the big 3 variables. And something I actually heard from Hermosi, gave me advice the other day, was that you want to treat every single lead as a cold lead. No matter if they're warm, no matter what type of lead it is, treat everything as a cold lead, because then the warm leads are guaranteed to buy, and the cold leads, again, get warmed up to buy.
Yeah, and Joseph, of course, YouTube has stronger booking rates. They're warm versus cold. But the thing is whatever you do to book cold will work with warm. What you do with warm won't necessarily work to cold. So treat all your audiences as though they are cold. That's just a massive fucking life hack, by the way.
So it's a massive cheat code, as Hermosi said, to treat everything like a cold lead. So if you're looking at your business, I'm going to treat leads from YouTube as leads from ads, because a ad is a cold lead. It's permissionless, right? So they've never seen me before. YouTube, they've seen me all the time. It's two different avatars, but if you treat everything like a cold lead, you then have massive leverage in terms of the sales process, because it's a great mental model, because they're qualified, they're warmed up, they're nurtured. It's just much, much higher close rate overall. So just a quick cheat code for you guys. Last one. I'm from India. I think U.S. clients won't work with me, and the U.S. market is saturated. I think you have two limiting beliefs right there. I see guys all the time acquire clients in U.S. from the Indian market, like they live in India, right? And if there's a tip for you, right, there might be some Americans who don't want to work with third world countries. One tip: you have to be better. You can beat them in skill with your disadvantage. You're just starting at a more disadvantaged starting point, right? Starting point is disadvantage, but you still have to be better, and you can get to their level. If you have wicked case studies, if you can do a wicked sales process, all of these things, still have an accent, they'll buy, right? If you can do good enough, if you can be good enough to actually sell them and build your sales skills, build your outreach skills, build a wicked service delivery process that is proven, you've got killer results. You could pull up your ads manager and be like, hey, look, this is the client results I'm getting. Like, hey, it's a business. It's going to work, right? Put in the inputs, you'll get the outputs. You're just starting at a slightly more disadvantaged place, right? Because again, there's some things with currency in India. There's some things with communication. English might not be your first language. No problem. My advice to you, that's a limiting belief. People succeed all the time. What about those thousands of people from India starting business and making it work? Are you just an exception? You can't just not work for you? Just put in the work, man. Come on. It'll work. And also, that's a second limiting belief, that the U.S. market is saturated. Again, you just have to be better. I went into the most saturated niche, right? Most saturated is real estate. You can say, you just have to be better. Have a better VSL. Have better outreach. Have better inbound leads. Have better ads. Better service delivery. You can create these asymmetrical advantages over the competition, like really being skilled at it, being really skilled at your service delivery. That was mine, right? Like I had really good service delivery for real estate. But guys, like the tip here for saturated, everything's saturated. You just have to be better. Each niche has its positives and negatives, disadvantages and advantages. You have to figure those out and tackle them. No niche is saturated. There's going to be new thousands of real estate agents entering the market every single year. It's not saturated where you can't get a client. It's been disproven over and over and over. Real estate's saturated, but everybody's succeeding. Why? Why are people getting advice from people who are millionaires in the real estate market? Succeeded because they're better. They got the teachings, right? It's just a limiting belief. Those two things you mentioned are limiting beliefs. Get them out of your head. You just have to be better. Not saturated. You just have to be better. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like styles like this, drop a comment. If you want a bunch of free stuff on how to scale your agency, shameless plug, it's completely free. It's in the description. I do weekly coaching calls in there as well, and there's a free onboarding call. We started up with 45 minutes of personal coaching, a personalized plan for you. And I'll see you later. Subscribe and like if you enjoyed. Goodbye.